everybody, and welcome to this video. It has been a while since I've done a dedicated video looking at a topic. I've been doing a lot of streams, of course, and I hope you've been enjoying those across the JRPGs that I've been playing, the retro games, the more adult stuff on Friday nights, and I've been doing a lot of streaming, which I've been having a lot of fun with, but I haven't had inspiration to do a dedicated video looking at a particular topic until now. Kairosoft. So if you haven't played a Kairosoft game before, they are a publisher based out of Japan that focus on casual simulation games. And the reason that I've got them on my mind at the moment is I've been playing the most recent port of a Kairosoft game to Nintendo Switch. And that game is Magazine Mogul. That's the one that you're seeing on the screen in front of you. It is actually number 26 in terms of the Kairosoft library that has been ported to the Switch, and that is no exaggeration. There are actually 26 games that you can play and buy and download and enjoy from this publisher. And the thing is that those 26 games are all remarkably similar to one another once you drill down past the superficial elements. And I wanted to do this video to, I guess, look at what makes Kairosoft quite appealing, because it is very appealing, despite the fact that there are so many games from this company and they really don't innovate on any level. There is still something very appealing about Kairosoft, and every time that one of these things lands on the Switch store, I feel a real urge to actually buy it. And while I haven't got all 26, I do have, I think it's 13 or 14, probably half, at least half. It would definitely be at least half of them. And I thought it'd be fun to explore via a video some of the reasons that I keep coming back to this publisher. Even though I know what I'm getting ahead of time, I also know that I'm going to play it for a couple of days obsessively and then never pick it up again. So yes, we're going to do a video looking at Kairosoft, the publisher. So Kairosoft got its start with a game called Game Dev Story, which was an iPhone game released back in 1997, so 13 years ago now. It's a very old game at this point in time. And it really did take the world by storm. I think at that time iPhone gaming was still very new, it was still being established, and developers were still working out what they could do with the thing. And along came Kairosoft with this hyper-casual little business simulation thing, which had these really cute pixel characters, and it was a very appealing, easy to get into, instantly enjoyable simulation game. And because of that, a lot of people who don't usually play simulation games really enjoyed it. It also had a great concept. I mean, who hasn't wanted to run a game developer? And it had a great sense of humor. Once you actually started to play it, it was not officially licensed to any of the companies, of course, so they came out with very creative ways of renaming the consoles. So instead of Nintendo, it was Intendo. But it was obvious what each console was as it came along. You started out in the 80s developing games for PCs and the really primitive consoles, and you could take your business right through to the modern era where you'd be developing games for Wii console and across a wide range of genres, where when you start out you're basically doing text adventure things. So that game really did capture people's attention and imagination, and right from the start it was the kind of game that was very easy to play for a short period of time. You'd go through one career as such, where you'd take a developer from those early days to the point where it was a leading developer making, selling 20-30 million copies of each game that it released. And then you would get bored of it, you'd put it down, and then 6 months later you would pick it up for one reason or another. Maybe you're just bored on a train ride or whatever, and you would get hooked all over again. And that is really kind of where Kairosoft got its start. And it was a very popular game. It was actually a full-priced game back then, because free-to-play was still not the default with mobile games. So you'd pay a couple of dollars, I think it was about $8 or whatever when it first released in Australia, and you'd have the game then. You wouldn't have to worry about microtransactions or anything like that. There were no premium currencies. It was just, you got what you paid for, which is a very simple simulation, and you enjoyed it. Because that game was such a success, Kairosoft has since gone and done it with just about everything else. So I mentioned Magazine Mogul beforehand, which is basically Game Dev Story, just where you're making a magazine rather than a video game. There is this one, which is Pocket Football Club, I think, which is superficially different because you're managing a football team rather than a game development business, or you're not making a product, you're playing a sport. But it also runs on the very similar set of very basic loops. And I'm getting to the key thing about Kairosoft. It feels good to play because you cannot lose in Kairosoft games. You start out with a very small team of just a couple of developers or a very weak team of footballers. But even if they do terribly, even if you create terrible games that have terrible reviews and whatever, the worst that can happen is that you only make a small amount of profit. But the chances of you actually going bankrupt and running out of money and failing is zero. I've never managed to actually lose a Kairosoft game, and I have tried to play very badly in the past, and I've never actually managed to get a game over screen. If there is even a game over screen, I have no idea it's there. And once you realize that there's no real gameplay in these things, in the sense that there's nothing to engage you. You go through motions, and they're very simple loops, and you just wait for everything to accumulate. So for another example, Mega Mall Story, or the Cruise Liner one, which you'll see a little bit later on in this video, you start out with nothing in these cruises, in the space, and you've got to put beds in for passengers to sleep on, or you've got to put stores in for people to come and buy stuff from. And it starts out where you've only got a couple of rooms or facilities. But because the money just naturally accumulates and there's no way to go backwards, you eventually add more to it, and add more and add more and add more, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, if you play really well, you can add more faster, but there's no way to... There's no chance that things will go backwards, like I said. So once you get to that realization, it kind of sucks a lot of the joy out of playing these games, because simulation games, even when they're casual, need to have that sense that the decisions that you are making have some kind of impact, and if you play well, you get rewarded. If you play poorly, then you take it as a learning experience and try something a little bit different. And there are certainly a lot of very excellent simulation games which are not high pressure. So I think of a game like City Skylines. It is possible to lose at City Skylines. It can be very difficult, especially if you put it on easy mode. It can be very difficult to get to the point where you're making such bad decisions that your town is doomed. But it is still, as accessible as it is still a game that you feel like you're being rewarded because you're actually getting results on the back of your decisions. That is where the Kairosoft games really don't have, they don't have that same thrust and gaminess to them. Now, with that being said, why do I keep playing these games? Because I really do. I buy them so often and I end up enjoying them and playing them an awful lot. And it's that simple charm, and it's that fact that you can play these games absolutely blind drunk and have a good time with it anyway. There are times where you simply don't want to engage with a video game. You just want something to tap on. Perhaps you're watching a movie and you just want to keep your hands busy. Perhaps you are on a train and it's only a very short trip, and playing a proper game feels like a waste. But if you've got a Kairosoft game on it, you can play it for a couple of minutes, make what passes for progress in the game, and then put it back down again. And I've done that quite a few times. I've used Kairosoft games on my Switch on planes when I've done trips to Japan and I'm pretty tired, but I just want, something to engage me because I don't fly very well. Or on the iPhone, I've played Game Dev Story quite a bit, again, while in Japan, going from one place to the next. It's that kind of low impact but very charming gameplay, and superficially they are different to one another. So this one, for example, is Ninja Town or Ninja Village or whatever it's called, and it has this kind of strategy looking element where you need to build up forces and then attack enemies and slowly capture territory, and as you do, you can have bigger forces and you have to fight larger enemies. It's got that very simple loop in it, and I actually lose this battle, but as you will see, well, you won't quite see because I think the video finishes beforehand, but there's no consequence to losing. It just means that I need to go and rebuild up my forces, but because I'm earning unlimited income, and the enemies don't actually attack me. They just passively wait for me to build my forces up to the point where I can make progress. And that there is a time where you want that kind of experience. So I guess that's why I enjoy Kairosoft games. They're a good fun. Give them a go. You will definitely find them quite engaging, if not addictive. And you'll see their weaknesses eventually, but you will have a good fun time while you get there. So I am not surprised that Kairosoft has remained so popular in the years since. Thank you very much for watching. Please do like and subscribe, and we will see you at the next video.